Together podcast. This is Shay, the Matt Mardigan of mental health. And today I've got the antidote, the anti-venom, the hero of his own journey, Mr. Brandon Tall Smiles Clarke, because he's tall and he smiles. And we've got him here today. How are you today, Brandon?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm good, Shay. I truly appreciate you inviting me onto the podcast.
And you asked for it too. And one of our beliefs here at the Winning Together podcast is good things come to those who ask. Boom. Now, don't let that suave, debonair voice fool you. His temperament is even, his attitude is engaging, and it might feel like it's secure, and it is now, but Brandon, you are not someone to be trifled with. We're going to go through the focus today. The theme is managing mental health discovery, ruptures, and repair. That's what your gift of mania, your gift of psychosis, your gift of breakdown, your gift of adversity has given you now that you've accepted and allowed it to bless you instead of curse you. What are some main themes you want to bring up today? So first of all, someone out there listening specifically is needing your message. So that person out there, we can reach the individual. For that individual out there, what do you want to make sure you connect with them about?
One of the most important things that we don't talk about in the Western culture is psychological crises and owning them and finding help in the community. And it's hard because it's very difficult to navigate the mental health system. And there's so many single approaches when we need a holistic approach. And there's a big need for communal healing rather than, just focusing on one symptom, treating that one symptom when we have an entire ecosystem within ourselves that needs help.
I love that. For anyone that's listening that thinks that you're alone or you have to do this alone, or I really love how you said that it really takes a strategy and tactics. You're not going to find the thing or a thing and it'll go away. I really feel like one of the things you want to bring up too is that it's the mosaic of the toolbox, or not the metaphor of the toolbox that now makes you a craftsman of your life, where before it was, I would need a hammer, so I'll just, that's how I solve all my problems, is everything's a nail. And now you speak often, I've got in my toolbox, I've got this and this and this, and you've actively recruited these, not just the tools, but the skills to use the tools to solve problems and serve others. I really love how we win together. We win together. And I know for you, and for me, and anybody, there is a part of the journey that's lonely and only you can trot it. You're even to feel God-forsaken at times. However, to continue to trod the path and transform or transmute the tragedy into triumph and the suffering into success, at some point you allow other people to accompany you on your journey or guide you or pull you or push you or lead you or however it is to go. Give our audience a little bit of your background. So conservative Christian background, college educated. What else would you want to communicate about who you are, where you're coming from?
Yeah, so a lot of my motivations come from kind of the hardships I faced and have faced. And whenever I face a hardship, I don't want to run from it. And every time I have run from it, I've just felt unfulfilled. I felt just kind of cowardish.
How would you define a hardship?
A lot of the times when things outside our control shake the way we see the world, it's easy to run. It's easy to revert back to, our upbringing and how we've coped with things in the past. oftentimes we are required to take on a new approach, and it's super hard to navigate new challenges in life.
I love that way of looking at hardship, and especially for any of us that have areas of black or white thinking or defaulting to black and white thinking, that hardship then is turned into a hard line and isn't giving you the ability to see the gray and the in-betweens and the nuances there. Okay? So you're a brave guy. Feeling cowardice is really hard to navigate, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, so I've kind of had to fight my way in this world. And when I revert back to, oh, you're just the youngest, then I just kind of sit on the back,
yeah.
and I'm just being acted upon. Don't get to be my own agent, and I want to be my own agent.
Man, in the mental health world, so often you can slip back or surrender to that thinking that you are not an agent in your life and that you are acted upon. But the truth is, if you're going to lead it in bravery, is you are an agent unto yourself to act on the world around you. Okay? What else? What's some other insight? Family of mental health challenges?
Yeah, so my grandpa, just a lot of challenges came from his alcoholism on my mom, and there was significant just genetic passage through that line, and I'm not trying to put any blame on that line by any means.
It's just awareness.
It's just having that awareness and
it's know thyself.
Yeah. And my dad's side, there's very strong conservative religious components there, and there's some obsessiveness within there that also has mental health challenges to that as well,
and some rigidity to the believing. All right,
yeah.
And it was kind of your I don't know if crisis is the way you want to describe it, but your adversity you experienced is kind of what brought light on, because heretofore those were not spoken of or addressed or talked about in your family dynamic growing up, right?
Not a lot. Mm-mm. And your parents, they want the best for you, period. Hopefully a loving parent and a child trying to make their way in the world, they want the best for them, generally speaking. And there are some exceptions, but my parents, that was the case. They wanted the very best for me, and to be able to help me navigate the challenges I faced, it was kind of difficult for them, and no blame on their part, but they love me, and through everything, I believe I've come out stronger and better, and have even more love for my parents.
And I just want to make sure it's clear to anybody listening here, when we talk about people, places, or things, it is to solve problems, period. There's no blaming, there's no shaming, there's no fault finding here. We are 100% responsible personally for our lives, both Brandon and mine, and that's it. So when we create awareness, we talk about it. I can talk about my grandpa who would gamble away money, and my dad, his kids would starve. And it's not that that's a poor choice. It's not a good thing. And in that moment, that he's not being a good person, without not hating on him or blaming him, or that was his choice. Those are consequences. We talk about this so we're aware that, when my dad talks about food and not wasting it, I understand better where he's coming from, because he starved. I have not gone through that, but it creates empathy and understanding. That's the whole point, solving problems. So I have this kind of crazy thought. So oftentimes parents, they won't talk about sex with their kids because they don't want them to think about it, and they think if they talk about it, then they'll start incentivizing ideation around it, and then they'll start doing lots of it. I wonder if sometimes the mental health thing is the same thing. I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to trigger it, so they start thinking about it and then start using, their thoughts, or days that they don't want to do their work, they say, I have this issue or whatnot. Do you think that might have been the case growing up?
Could have been. Yeah. I think self-awareness only comes from talking about it. And sometimes it's painful to address these things, and it's natural. It's within us. Our body wants to protect us, and so when we are faced with new adversity that gives us what's called the fight or flight response, it's designed biologically to protect us, to keep us from getting hurt. And I'd say in a lot of households, that can be a motivation is to protect and to not let your child get hurt and not want your child to get hurt, and do everything in your power to stop that pain, stop that hurt. When in reality, it's through working through pain that we grow. It's through working through pain that we become better.
How much does your background of being a distance runner at a high level or runner at a high level has influenced that perspective on pain?
Huge. I mean, I broke my arm in high school, and church ball is a big
Church ball is of the devil.
Of the devil. No good comes from it.
No, it does not.
No, not a lot of good comes from it. You just get angry, and
no good comes from it.
No good from it. Regardless, we at the stake level, so there's 9 to 10 wards in a stake. In South Jordan, where I'm from, we won the stake title. We went on to a regional
title.
Stake
is the way they organize the churches of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, how they organize the different groups, congregations.
Yeah. Yep. So within stakes, you have a region. So can be up to 9 stakes. So theoretically, you have 9 congregations.
1,000 teenage boys competing for that. Yep.
Going at it. So we advanced to the finals of the region finals. So amongst 100 congregations, we made it. And
now you're at high school ball level, right?
14-year-old.
Yeah. So junior high then, okay.
Junior high. But 4 minutes remaining in the game, I went up for a rebound, and my own teammate went up as well. I got undercut and broke my arm. And that was a significant amount of pain, but I was also participating in indoor track and outdoor track after that. So while I had a cast on, I still, I had the goal to break 5 in the mile. And with my broken arm, I was still able to do that.
Wow.
Break 5 in the mile.
And you broke 2 in the 800 as well, right?
Yeah, that was 2 years after that.
156 or something?
158.
158. Wow.
Yeah.
I would have to say that athletics has played a formidable part in my navigating struggle and challenge and overcoming adversity, for sure.
And I'd say wanting it too much is a bad thing as well.
Interesting.
I had instances my second to last year in college where I was trying to use running as an outlet, but I was...
So not competing at this point?
Not competing, just using it as an outlet to stay healthy, manage stress.
And is this in preparation for medical school?
Yeah, leading up to medical school. And I was getting frustrated with what was going on with my journey toward medical school. And that frustration went into running, and I got injured inevitably with my running. So it felt like medical school was falling away from me, and then I couldn't do my passion of running. So just more and more frustrations.
With no way to process them.
Yeah.
Or at least not ways that you were wanted to use or familiar with or experienced with, yeah.
Not enough tools in the toolbox.
Ooh. So the harder you're trying to run towards your goal of medical school, the further it feels like it's getting away.
Yeah.
Now let's backtrack a little bit, give you a little background. So you're a boy, toddler, 4 or 5 years old, and you have this tragic accident with your dad. Is that right?
Yeah. So in the driveway, 1999, rollerblades were the They're
coming back.
In the 90s, they're coming back now. Anyway, my my two brothers, older brothers, were across the street doing roller hockey with the neighbor kids. And I was a little 4-year-old wanting to be a part of them, be a part and join them. So I had these 8-year-old rollerblades on my 4-year-old feet. I was trying to
flopping back and
forth, just kind of going on my butt, just whatever. And there was a temporary moment of distraction going on between my mom and dad at the time. And my dad was getting ready to leave to pick up my sister from piano lessons. And just that one moment, he didn't look back. And he backed over me, shattered my shoulder blade, and left a scar, or I guess it punctured my skull and left a C-shaped scar on my head that I have to this day.
Wow.
So.
And then what happened?
So I was life flighted to Primary Children's Hospital, and there I was given, in my eyes, life-saving treatment to, if anything, very important cosmetic procedure to prevent further infection or other complications that could have come had there not been the modern medicine and the blessings we have with that today.
How has that influenced now our discussion today?
Every time I look back at it, it's a motivation. It's a reason for me wanting to connect with people, help people, and get to know people at the vulnerable points, because it's been a trigger. It's been a topic of not necessarily a trigger that's distressing for me, but a memory that is important to me. And I wanted, as a young adult, late teenager, young adult, I was wanting to mend those scars with my family. I was wanting to touch those topics that hadn't really been discussed in childhood.
So how did your family navigate that crisis? So over the next several years.
Yeah. So my dad was able to consolidate it into, it was challenging, extremely difficult. I'd say he described it as a time when he was mad at God, very mad at God. And
like letting this happen, or how could he, or
for example,
ashamed, or?
We feel like, okay, some people get promptings to look back, or you're kind of given the last minute saving grace.
Danger.
Danger.
Spirit, your inside wisdom says, hey, don't go there, or do that. And so he's upset that God didn't tell him to look back.
Yeah, and hurt in a sense.
Yeah.
So there were, when I was 18 and 20, in that range, I had some conversations with him that were just very pensive and humbling. And I was able to...
For him or for you, or both?
For both of us, yeah. We were able to explore that sensitive moment and just be grateful that I'm not a vegetable today.
Well, none of that. You've grown into the young man that he hoped you would, who's athletic and using gifted talents, and you're member of your family. And I think you said, in kind of learning about your family history and whatnot as a teenager, you learned a few things that trigger your mind to be unhealthy. And you said drugs, alcohol, and graveyard shifts. So through your teenage years, drugs and alcohol were off the table for you, right? They weren't options. So running was probably huge for that. Your family support, your spirituality, right? But the time you're having this cathartic time with your dad is you also decide to go serve your church, right? For a couple years as a missionary. Okay.
Yeah. So those triggers are known to be the three things that can bring out manic episodes within bipolar. So again, they're drugs, alcohol, and graveyard shifts. And later I did do a graveyard shift, and that changed things quite a bit for me.
Well, so let's tie this one together. So you had a mentor in your was this your mid-20s, I guess, that tied the life crisis traumatic injury into now a purpose of going to medical school. Is that right?
Yeah. So from 2013 to 2015, I did the mission in Florida, so in the West Coast, Southwest, and Southeast. And I met a Air Force child. So he traveled around the world. He'd lived in Guam. At the same time, his father was German, and his mother was Thai, had royal connections to
Thailand, okay.
Thailand, yeah. And
he's an adult when you met him, though.
Yeah, so this man was in his 50s.
I think they call those sometimes army brats, right? Or
army brats.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but he just had a lot of energy that I vibed with, and had some childhood traumatic stuff happen, and I think we related a lot over that. And after I got home in 2015, it was the summer, I was contemplating, okay, I'm going to go to college. What are the paths I want to go down? And I distinctly remember a conversation in November, so a month before the finish of my first semester at college, and I was just beating my head over, like, what am I going to do? And I was on.
You always knew it was going to be dentist, doctor, lawyer, like something like that, right?
Yeah. So engineering is in my family. So my dad's an engineer. My two brothers are an engineer. Out of high school, I thought that's what I would do.
Yeah, you have the mentality for it, huh?
Yeah. But on my mission, I really reconsidered being an engineer. So I wanted to explore something else. I just felt like I wanted to do something else. And Lynn, this mentor, just popped the question, do you think you can be a doctor? Like you had your accident, and there's a lot of good you could do within the medical profession. And that was the first time I'd ever even thought that was a possibility, because I didn't believe in myself.
Did you grow up thinking you were stupid?
A little bit, yeah. I felt a lot of pressure growing up in high school. Being the youngest, there's a lot of living up to your older siblings. Ooh. And that was the pressure I lived with that put me into some...
Was that self-imposed, or was that family culture, or both?
Both. I think I did self-impose it, but there was some family culture components to it.
And you married into a family culture like that too, huh?
No, not really.
No, my wife weren't disappointed when you didn't do certain things?
No.
Okay.
So that was actually rather refreshing, marrying into a pretty just kind of enjoy, I'll let you do what you want to do. But then again, like my parents, in the end, they respect, they've always respected my decisions. Yeah.
And so then you get married, you're doing your undergrad stuff, and medical school, of course, is what you're going to do now, because you have this experience. So, of course, God says that's what you want to do. Mm-hmm. You start going down that road, and what happened?
Yeah, so this November...
So this takes to mid-20s now?
So
early 20s?
I'm 20.
Okay.
20 at the time.
Okay.
After that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 months following, I had visited Florida, introduced my parents to Lynn, and just kind of had this surreal, just like, oh, I got to show this cool friend. And I start the next semester, and February 2016, I get a phone call out of the blue, and I find out that Lynn had passed away of a heart attack.
He's in good health? Totally unexpected, right?
Yeah, he's a runner. He did have some heart issues, and I didn't know that they were to that extent. So it was just out of the blue. He's a very healthy person, would eat healthy, would exercise regularly. Didn't see anything that he was doing to be detrimental to his health.
Close mentor and crushing to you.
Yeah, absolutely crushing. Yeah, so I just didn't know what to do. I just bottled it up, and just went to town and just finished my medical prereqs and medical school prereqs and applied to medical school.
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
I'm fine.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And the blow that really made it just devastating was getting the rejections for medical school. I applied to 15, got 2 interviews.
Yeah, it feels awesome paying a few $100 to get rejected, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Pop.
They don't pay anything. You're just putting everything out on the line for it.
So $1,000 are out with the return investment of no, you're not worthy, you're not accepted, or whatever.
Getting those voices from
15
childhood. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's over months, right? Several months to that.
So again, my first interview question in Texas was mental health related, and I was like, wait, okay, obviously there's some value placed on mental health here. And I was like, not even open to any of that at the time. But at the same time, I was like,
do you have a touch of the perfectionism growing up?
Yeah. So when I got that question, I just felt inside me like there is something off a little bit. And I'm pretty stressed. I'm pretty stressed right now. And I'd like to maybe get a little less stressed. So if anything, it was just a curiosity at that time. And so I got rejected from that school. I was like, great, okay. But then this mental health
started nagging you?
Was nagging me, yeah. And then I got another interview 3 months later and felt even better about that interview than the previous one, but I got rejected. And waited 4 or 5 months to get the rest of the rejections. And then I graduated from college, just thinking like the plan was...
With nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go. Had nowhere to go. But that nagging question of mental health was killing me, in a sense.
Were you experiencing depression at that time? Or?
I'd say so, yeah. I didn't want to admit it. I was driven. I was focused on the goal.
Yep.
The goal was medical school.
As long as you could run, do your spiritual, go to church, have your wife, and those things, as long as those things were going, you were able to navigate it, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but wasn't doing it very well, I'll be honest.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, wasn't navigating very well. And so with that question,
what does that mean?
Wasn't navigating
when you
very
say
well.
I wasn't navigating it very well. What does that mean?
I'd say I was probably placing more emotional strain on the people around me.
By being tense or stressful or critical or angry or
all
silent?
The above.
Gotcha.
All the above.
So you're just stressful to be around. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to be positive, but it's obvious that there's a lot of stress.
And you're 2 years deep, 3 years deep in your marriage now?
Yeah.
At that point?
3 years.
3 years, okay.
Mm-hmm. So kind of the
no kids at the time, right?
No kids.
Okay.
The window of unknown was there in 2019. But the nagging question of mental health prompted me to improve my resume by learning about mental health.
Gotcha.
So I went to go work at the state hospital, took the humbling $10 a dollar.
$10
$10 an hour job.
They got you a good deal.
Yeah.
They got you for a good price.
Yeah.
So this is what you're thinking is it's still medical related. The mental health thing keeps coming up. I'm going to get squash this annoying bug and go learn about it and see I'm clearly not that. And then what happens?
So I knew my grandpa had bipolar, and I was curious to connect with him a little bit, learn a little bit more about him. And
still alive this time? At that
no,
time?
So he actually passed away the same week Lynn passed away in 2016.
Oh, wow.
So it was just kind of this whole mental health thing going on. My grandpa's in between everything. And he'd been institutionalized for 30 years, just up and down the Wasatch Front.
Wow.
He was first admitted to the forensics criminals at the Utah State Hospital, psychiatric hospital. He's extremely driven individual, just very hardworking and very giving, very caring in the sense of provider, very provident individual. And
kind of an ass too.
Yeah, but an alcoholic.
Gotcha.
So the alcoholism brought out the anger, brought out the bad side.
Like violent blackout type stuff?
Yeah, abuse, physical abuse at times. So what got him into the state hospital was working at Geneva Steel, very big steel company.
At that time, it was.
At that time in the 80s.
World famous.
Yeah, and he was vying for an executive role and wasn't going to get it. So the politics of working there and the stress and his own aspirations and failures culminated to an act of crime, showing up to an executive meeting with a handgun. So that landed him in the state hospital. And funny or not, he was recruiting for Amway when he got into the state hospital.
Interesting.
So he was my uncle on my dad's side, grandpa's on my mom's side. My uncle was on the same unit that my grandpa was admitted to.
Wow.
So in his mania, he was very ambitious, was recruiting everyone, faculty and patients to join his Amway.
Which comes in play, interestingly enough, 2 generations later.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're learning more about your grandpa. You're going to work at the mental hospital.
I'm tired, but at this time, because I was pretty much cornered to work a single graveyard shift a week. It was pretty much just encouraged. You got to chip in. I was going to work there part-time. And so I was either going to work a swing shift or a graveyard shift. So I'm always the type that I'm like, I'll challenge myself.
Yeah.
So for the first time ever, I decided to do a graveyard shift on Wednesday nights. And in between, trying to study for medical exam. But after 4 months, my stress did not go away. It just got worse. And the change in the season in August brought on some mania.
And define mania for somebody who might not understand what that means.
So this is how I kind of come to think about it is positivity we think is good, but mania is a bit too much positivity. So it's overdrive and you can't turn it off. And again, like with bipolar, there's some anger, things that can come out. But for me, I experience mania with, if anything, just super talkative. And it's a thing in the brain. There's circuits in the brain that just turn on, and it's really hard to turn them off.
Okay. So you're from the outward perspective, you're positive, you're using affirmations, you're doing your exercises, you're doing school and work, and how can any of this be wrong or bad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But then anxiety, just crippling. I just remember it got to a point where I was just laying in bed, almost seizure-like, just convulsing. I knew something was wrong, and I told my wife, I need to go to my parents. Like, up to that point, it's just been, we're on our own, we're married, we're gonna make this work. But I was just having crippling anxiety and was in a seizure-like state. And I popped out of it and said, mind you, we're in a studio apartment, so more stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted out.
Yep.
So the first time, I just went to live with my parents for a few days. And things calmed down to an extent, but there was still stress and anxiety with other stuff. And I didn't know that it was bipolar at this point. But 9 months go by, and April, another change in the season, and this was the onset of COVID. So the uncertainty of, being able to apply even for medical school with everything being shut down, I got to a point I was like, forget this, and just dropped the medical school stuff and started pursuing these goals and dreams that were just out of my norm.
Like entrepreneur stuff, like business stuff. Like, okay.
Yeah.
How did that feel to let go of the medical school dream?
It felt liberating because there was a lot of resentment that just
Still
all
is,
the
huh?
stress.
It still is, huh?
Actually, it's my goal to come to peace. Like,
I love that.
yeah, like the resentment was a period. It was a season.
Well said.
And now I don't feel that resentment, but I did during that time, right at the onset of COVID.
Wow. Talk about compounding.
Yeah.
When it rains, it pours.
I was in the middle of my second episode. I would go to the cemetery, the Provo Cemetery.
What does an episode mean? Somebody who's listening, what's an episode mean?
An episode, so hypomania is just like routine stuff. Like, that person's, they're pretty productive, or they're doing a good amount of stuff right now. Like getting a big project done could be considered hypomanic, meaning lower mania.
Okay.
It's, you are a little more functional in the sense of getting things done. Manic episode is you're full blown, you've lost touch with reality in a sense, and the reality in front of you disagrees with what any normal person off the street would say.
And is it something that goes for days or weeks or a period of time? Or
so it's defined as about a week. At least a week, can last up to 3 months. And it's compared to being on cocaine nonstop. It's not that there's you can be on a 3-month spurt of cocaine.
So you're not sleeping, you're not connecting, you're not feeling fulfilled, you're not taking care of your human needs, so you're using up a tremendous amount of resources internally of brain, chemistry and body resources, and at some point then your body stops you, or you stop, and you're now have to recover, but you feel, I'm assuming, really low. Is that right?
Yeah. During this state, I would go by the Provo Cemetery, and there was this street light crosswalk that wasn't functioning. It was like just out of the blue, is for whatever reason at that time, it would just say stop every 5 seconds. Or no, it would say, stop, just kind of annoyingly, stop. And I would go on this pathway occasionally.
Like for a walk or something?
For a walk or
run.
And in this sensitive manic episode state, it just spoke so literally to me, stop. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stop. And I took that literally as a notion to slow down and just stop.
At that moment, or at your life at that time, or both?
In the moment, and going forward, just something's wrong, and we got to figure this out. I didn't know this was a manic episode at the time.
Wow, how serendipitous.
Stop.
Synchronicity.
Mm-hmm. And it took me about a year to get through it. So May of 2020, and then getting a job in October was kind of the beginnings of healing. So I had a massive depression from May to October 2020. And then
On a scale of 1 to 10, how massive was it?
there were moments of thoughts of suicide, and just I'd never had that before. And I started on some medications, and the black box warning was thoughts of suicide can come from this. And that was disconcerting. So, I did research and found a lot of, in the Western culture in the United States, lithium is not accepted very widely as a normal treatment, whereas in the EU, it's the reverse. It's actually used more often. So I knew as well that my grandpa, he'd been on lithium and been pumped with it, and he'd gained over 100 pounds while he was on it.
Oh, wow.
When he was on it against his will. And I just I knew, there are risks with anything that I do. And reading a book, An Unquiet Mind by clinical psychologist, Redfield is the last name. She's a UCLA grad, and she describes Mania super well, but her regimen is 300 milligrams of lithium, and sometimes patients are prescribed four to five times that. So when I read about that, I was like, okay, it seems like a lower dosage. Therefore, I'm not as high at risk of these consequences of people talk about hair falling out and issues with your kidneys. And then you have to switch medications later. So,
you didn't have the alcohol part of your mix either.
Yeah, and putting alcohol in is not good with probably with any medication.
With anything, it's poison. So yeah.
So piecing that together with the help of that, and then I've had encouragement. There's other people that take on that approach as well.
The medications you were taking were giving you the suicidal ideation, or with the lithium it was?
No. So this was before I even committed to doing lithium.
Gotcha. So I went to a psychiatrist and said, this gave her all my background and basically told her this is bipolar 1. Basically, I didn't get hospitalized when I probably should have been. And because they say 95% of diagnoses come from hospitalization. Gotcha. So there's a lot out there that's unchecked or undiagnosed.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, kind of like yours was until you were willing to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're becoming that person and having those problems that you said you would never have and that you'd never get, and you're having them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you start to accept them.
Yeah, it was hard. I didn't want to.
Well, you had to destroy the old you. You had to let your old you die.
Yeah. My wife was in such a stressful state that one of her coworkers, she worked at a family medicine residency, so she was in the medical field, exposed, and the clinical psychologist that works with the doctors approached her and asked her, "How are you doing?" And she was distressed. She was, mind you, 6 months pregnant as well. Ooh. And I was full-blown my manic episode. And she shared some of the behaviors I was doing that lined up with bipolar. And she demonstrated courage to ask me to meet with this guy.
Ooh, yeah. Huge courage. Did you get angry?
No, I didn't.
Were you ready?
Yeah, because a lot of my spurts are focused on wanting people to change for themselves, and in a kind of forceful way. That's the tendencies that I had when I was in my manic episodes.
And not that MLM marketing is forceful, but one of your triggers was you started promoting Amway, right?
So I investigated it, and it brought a lot of positivity, and was like, "Oh, this sounds great." but we never ended up doing it, probably for the better.
Yeah.
At the time. But not to say that there are good people that participate in it, absolutely.
But is the financial freedom, the possibility where you're feeling so close, it felt like it was so possible, huh?
Yeah, it felt possible. It felt like an easy, quick fix to my...
I can get back to where I need to be, where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is bull sugar, by the way. To get back, you are exactly where you need to be, and you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, always. Anybody who's listening, the world is always perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So...
real quick, in any of this, had you done counseling before this, or is that part of your regimen? Had you been open to that, going up to meet with a psychiatrist?
Yeah, so 6 months prior, I started doing trauma-based therapy.
Okay.
Just because of the signs of, not feeling good, knowing something's off. I wanted to explore that. So I did make some progress with, releasing some of these demons.
Demons, yeah, that's the word came out for me too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got rid of some of those, and it got me even raw. It got me more raw.
Sure.
And I mean, thank goodness, like there was never the drug or the alcohol, but the sleep. That's the ultimate blessing and curse with a mood disorder, is getting a routine and getting good sleep and using the waves of life in a responsible way.
Your circadian rhythms, right?
Circadian rhythms, yeah. When those are off, it's, all hell can break loose.
And as you're growing up, that's the whole emphasis on eating breakfast and good foods and, getting to bed on time, early to bed, early to rise. That is all intended to help your body maximize the way it functions and works. Yep.
Yeah.
The medications were helpful. You talked to the psychiatrist. You got a good regimen or an appropriate one that started working well for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll be honest, like, having been pre-med, like, I just kind of have this pride in me of being a know-it-all.
Yep.
So I did kind of go to my psychiatrist and tell her my preferences.
Totally.
I wasn't going to just...
tell you what I am and what's going on. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm still kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not...
I see you. It's all good.
Yeah. So, because I mean, I'm...
And here you are giving your gifts and talents.
I want to know the why.
Yep.
I want to know the why. Why am I going to be given this? Is this going to be an experiment? Or...
By the way, anybody listening, being willing to be skeptical and critically thinking things is a must. Overthinking, staying in your head and not allowing inspiration to be part of it, that's where you miss some of the real benefits of the critical thinking and the skepticism.
Yeah. This past week, we were going to record this last Monday, and it probably would have been a different recording.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely would have been different, because this week it gave me another chance to reflect and challenge my own mindset. And I did that by, I had this limiting belief that I couldn't do a certain amount of push-ups at night on a regular basis. And because I broke my wrist as a 14-year-old. And it's just kind of that fear of that spot being tampered with. And
even though there's no current issues right now.
No current issues.
Wow.
Yeah. Like I'll occasionally get like carpal tunnel.
Sure.
In the forearm and the wrist area. But for now it's like if I go too fast or whatever, I'm just afraid that I'm going to cripple it or do whatever to it. And so I took my own advice, or the voice in my head saying, stop, slow. And I just, instead of just getting them all done in one go, I just took breaks. And I'd been doing push-ups just for my knees. Okay. So not doing the harder full push-up with good form. And so I took the advice to stop and slow, and took me 5 minutes to do 35 push-ups. But I did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Way to smash that limiting belief, baby.
Yeah.
I think, when you allow yourself, especially as an adult, as a grown-ass man or woman or person to go big in small ways in your life, you start getting momentum. You start taking your power back in a way that you don't think really matters because it feels like it's so small, but it gets you momentum, and it gets you in the direction, it gets you getting small wins, which lead to the bigger ones. So valuable.
Well, I think we focus too much on the winning.
Totally.
We're just looking at, going to win. If I don't win, then the self-limiting beliefs can kick in.
If I can't do all 50, then
quit.
Not going to do any at all.
Don't do any at all. So when in reality, it's the effort, it's the small steps.
It's the grit, it's the effort, it's the challenge, it's the contrast. I can't tell you how valuable that's been for me as well. That's awesome. I'm so glad you shared that.
And I get to push up 12, 13. I'm like, my mind is telling me, you can't do this. My mind tries to kick in and say, you can't do this. You're hurting. Look at you. And then I just take a breath, do another one, and then the pain goes away.
And for all you muscle guys out there thinking, oh, this doesn't apply to me, you go take this guy on the track and you challenge him to any distance, and he will clean you out. So we all work on our gifts and talents in our own ways. So no judgments, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I would get injured, I was running 6:30 to 7:30 minute mile pace.
Wow.
Just 5 to 9 miles doing that. Now I'm running 8:30 to 9:30 minute mile pace. Granted, I'm not. I haven't upped my mileage significantly. So, I mean, I want to get on a regular basis of running, 40 miles a week. I used to do up to 60, 70 miles a week in high school.
Yeah.
But, if I could do 40 miles, when I do 40 miles, then I can make some progress. Because I'm going slow right now, and then I feel like I can speed it up.
And more importantly, you're winning in more areas of your life too, not just that area.
Absolutely.
The relationship is you're finding connection and growth there. The career, you're a dad now, staying mentally more healthy and engaged and not checking out. Those are all huge wins. So you're winning in a lot more of your life than just one or two areas.
Yeah, that feels good. It feels good.
What's better? I don't know what's better feeling than to experience that just satisfaction that comes from growing into your life and seeing your pie expand, and you become that person who can attract that kind of life on a consistent basis. And you think about the relationship you have with your wife now to a year ago and the person you're becoming, and because of the mental health opportunities that you took advantage of, you're becoming this multi-skilled individual who is collecting this toolbox. So let's actually talk about that, if that's a good segue. Is you referenced a lot as now I have a toolbox of tools. So just challenging your mentally limiting beliefs, that's one of the tools that you have practiced and put in practice. And by the way, I will see you yesterday. So one of the things that I've done is my tools is cold work. So I'll do cold showers, jump in cold water, whatever. And right now there's the Pro River close by, and my buddy calls me up, hey, we're going to go cold swim under the blue moon. And I was like, I'm 50-50. I'm just like, I don't want to go. And I was like, okay, the more you complain, then you got to go. Yeah, you have to go. So sure enough, I called them. I'll be there. Told my family, I got to go do this. It's 10:30 at night on a Sunday night before Monday, which I have a big week. And so I'm all the reasonable, rational justification. Exactly. And that's totally, I had to do it. Just like you had to figure out how to get to 35. And so where was I last night at 10:30 under the blue moon? Jumping into freezing cold water and sitting in that and sitting until I left whatever I need to leave, and it was time to get out. So I see you, man. That's the way we have an adventurous, fulfilling, satisfying, abundant life.
I'll have to join you on that next time, because my family went to Arizona, Sedona. There's a slide rock in March. So this is spring runoff. And my in-laws were just going to say, Brandon, you're going to be the one to do it first. So I did it. It was 5-minute traverse through cold water, spring runoff, and they did it.
Numb in about 70 seconds.
Yeah.
bones are aching about 45 seconds.
You got to breathe. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Love to have you when it's ready. So tell me about some more of your tools that you've developed through. So you've mentioned counseling, getting some professional help, medications, becoming aware, family history. What else?
So another piece to the family history, let me add some depth to that. So my grandpa wrote 30 pages when he was trying to do some reflection and, summarize his life. He wrote about 30 pages, and he shared some of the traumas that he had been through, and the one that stuck out to me was losing his mother as a 3 or 4 year old.
Wow.
Being a single child to her, and then his dad remarried a 16-year-old and was reared by a 16-year-old mother.
There obviously wasn't the connection there with his real mom, or
no connection there. He wanted to, and he described going to he lived in rural Alpine at the time, and went to the chicken coop and would just pray to God, where's my mom? I want my mom. And he just didn't feel like he belonged. He was the black sheep in his family.
Man, and so when you hear about him being alcoholic and threatening adults with violence, you start seeing it back.
He's a completely different person. He's just that 3 or 4 year old. So really taking that therapy, the thing with EMDR is you can't do it because someone else wants you to do it. It's not going to do anything.
That's the trauma-based therapy you did?
Yeah, the trauma-based therapy. You have to know what is bothering you, what is igniting the fight or flight within you, and facing it. And the therapy, the whole purpose of it is to desensitize your bodily response to those memories and those images that are traumatizing to you. And then you can reframe them and look back on them. They're not traumatizing anymore. Just that happened to me. Life sucks.
And
shit hits the fan.
And now what?
And now what?
And now what do you do?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I believe we use that as motivation. You get over it, not just by sucking it up, by facing it and putting it in your toolbox.
Yeah, the idea of working through it works so well for me is you don't get over it, get through it, or you get through it. You work through it. On the other side, you are able to engage with it in a different way. Yeah. It doesn't, like you said, trigger the same emotions.
It's no longer a trigger. I mean, it could be a trigger for other people. For my wife, the seasons following my episodes were triggers.
Probably will be for a while.
Probably will be for a while, yeah. And she's made small improvements, but just recently she's shared her willingness that she wants to do EMDR. She hasn't done any yet, but now she's gotten to the point where she's focused on her self-worth in therapy. Now she's ready to open the trauma drawer and unpack that.
Yeah, because there's another side of the codependent stuff. So that I've learned if you want to lead out in your life, so often the people you love, they'll come with you. They'll go there. And if you're going there and you're just finding that trust that you're going to do your part no matter what, or to the very best of your ability, they want to be around you more because you are attracting health, being a healthy person.
Yeah. And a whole part of this journey was as well, I got into better nutrition. I loved the episode by Michael with his journey. And
what's that?
The episode by Michael, the Lehigh Bike Shop, with his whole focus on the gut.
Oh, right. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So his perspective.
Your second brain. So you're talking about the Winning Together podcast episode with Michael. Yep.
Yeah. So that I found is just super important. I stay away from sugar the best I can. I'll go through my ups and downs and suffer the consequences. But more often than not, I find myself able to stay away from those.
Sugar, what else on the diet has put you in a good place?
So avoidance of sugar, there's implementation, of course, more greens. They are important for serotonin production. Mm-hmm. And with bipolar, serotonin is, you need a healthy amount. The irony is if you give a bipolar person an antidepressant or an SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that increases the levels of serotonin in you. That actually induces mania in bipolar. So too much, like without a mood stabilizer, something to treat the mania, with just an antidepressant, you'll shoot up.
Gotcha.
So I always knew that an antidepressant, when I knew it was bipolar, I knew I couldn't do an SSRI.
Okay.
So, but other ways I can get my serotonin is in a healthy, natural way. It's more greens.
Running outside.
So
being aware of the awareness of the dopamine and serotonin, I think, is really important. What are you? Are you dopamine deficient? Serotonin? Is that your issue? Are you eating food at a gas station? There is some fundamental questions you start addressing. Just do a protein shake and throw some spinach in it. Great way to start.
Yeah. So just, journaling those things and tracking yourself.
Oh, has journaling been important to you?
Yeah. I mean, lately I haven't been as strong in it, but
I think
there were some pivotal moments there where it was important and it helped.
There is magic in writing on paper just what the hell is happening in your life.
Absolutely.
No judgment, not trying to, but just working through it. It's amazing.
Yeah. And it promotes greater self-awareness.
Big time.
You're able to look at it at a time when you feel different inherently and evaluate and look at it in an objective way to be like, is this normal? Is there something off? And just notice the inside of you am I where I want to be?
Much more masterful in your emotion, being aware of what is and what isn't. Meditation, yoga, what about friendships, service? What are some other things that have come up for you?
So there's I'm big into motivational speakers. So there's a large variety. You have your Zig Ziglar.
Who are some of your favorites right now?
Yeah. There's this runner from Florida. He lives in Florida, Eddie Pinheiro. His whole brand on YouTube is self-belief based and conquering yourself. And he applies an entrepreneurial backstory to it. It's an entrepreneurial podcast, but the brand is self-belief, your world within. And so I'll listen to him. Last week, I really listened to David Goggins.
Sure.
And his military mentality.
Vitamin G is always good for you.
Vitamin G. There's a voice, like when that voice gets in your head, you can do hard things. So honestly, that's what prompted me to do my push-ups last week.
Yeah, he has a way of doing that to you, doesn't he?
Yeah, because his story is very poignant with trauma and how he overcame the struggles of having an alcoholic father, and it's real. A lot of people can relate to it.
Let's hit another one of your big pillars is your spirituality. How has your spirituality adapted as you've evolved?
Yeah, I think I had more external desires that were unrealistic prior, whereas now I feel like God is he's our loving Father, and he makes us who we want to be. He has that power.
God grants unto man according to his desires.
Yeah. So honestly, it's what we want to accomplish, what we want to obtain is feasible and possible, and God can help us in that.
Whether they be good, average, temporal, physical, unrealistic, realistic, in family, whatever, God grants unto man according to their desires.
Amen. Yeah. So, and evaluating what my desires are has evolved. So, an evolution of, I wanted to become this doctor but I had a lot of insecurities. And now I still want to become a doctor. It's like, it's still a dream. It's still an aspiration because I have this raw experience of being ran over, a mentor dying, and I have the story I want to tell that, looking forward, I want to be able to be in that position.
And it's still calling to you,
help,
isn't it?
and really, it's still calling to me.
And you're letting it come at you in a way that maybe you don't even know what it looks like yet, but it's still allowing it to be.
And I think God allows things to materialize in his timing.
Yep.
And it's never on our timing. Accept that.
Or not.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
It leads to probably unnecessary suffering. There is good suffering, though.
Yep, absolutely.
There's good suffering
We could do a whole podcast of just that right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How about your relationship? How has your relationship evolved to expand with who you are now as a more complete person? Because you don't look at your bipolar now as a curse. It is what it is, and you are who you are. There's way more acceptance than there ever has been of it. Mm. How has your relationship with your spouse evolved?
Yeah, so the reality is when I found out I was bipolar and I accepted that, accepting the reality that a lot of spouses can't live with a bipolar spouse. Like, there's divorces rampant with mental illness. And I was fighting an uphill battle. And I didn't want that fate to happen. So I stopped going for medical school because that was a big trigger that was affecting my marriage. And stopping enabled me to heed to her and bring our child into this world and put my goals on the back burner. And that was absolutely necessary to keeping things together. And when things materialize in career aspect for me, then I think I can honestly look back at these times to just be grateful I didn't get into medical school when the bipolar hit.
Or without the awareness or tools that you have now.
Yeah. So having the tools has helped progress us to where we are today. And we're still imperfect in trying to navigate the traumas and the triggers.
For sure.
That have arisen.
By the way, there's no couple out there that isn't or hasn't. I think that's why I'm so grateful for you coming on and sharing on the Winning Together podcast is I can't think of a relationship that's not affected by mental health. Either the individuals or their kids or their parents or their friends or their family or their coworkers. It's like porn. It affects all of us. Same with drugs. You don't have to be drinking or doing drugs, but somebody you care about or you love or you depend on or is important to you or you're there to serve, they need you to understand, do your hard, figure it out, be empathetic, listen, try to understand. You don't have to agree, but trying to understand is the magic maker right there. It affects us all, period. Mm-hmm. I think, that's why I love I'm Recovery Sponsors podcast is the attitude here is recovery is for everybody. Yeah, we work primarily with people going through substance abuse and recovering from that. However, finding out that your mom or dad is gay or that your brother doesn't believe in the same faith anymore or that your, child tried drugs once and their brain is not the same.
Brings mental health struggles.
It brings the challenges in and on, and you have to learn how to recovering from your son as a heroin addict, from losing the love of your life tragically, it's the same. Recovery is the same. It applies to us all the time.
Compulsivity in parenthood just comes out when struggles arise.
And stress, and then pushing back against boundaries, and if they're unclear, totally. Yeah, without going into becoming a dad and a husband in the 3 to 5 year, 5 to 7 year, 7 to 9 year frame of marriage, forget about it. Yeah, you get the tools that you can start going the distance with it, for sure. Well, bring us home. What's some other, Mr. Tall Smiles, what are some things you want to make sure hit home or land, or that person out there that needs to hear you, what is that you want to make sure that you leave them with?
Yeah. For, getting the good thing that came from bipolar was for many, it becomes a curse and a blessing. I wanted to take risks, and I wanted to
take risks. You mean like professionally?
Okay. Just take risks
financially,
in life. Yeah, and that can be a curse. Obviously, taking risks can present downfalls.
It's also essential
and
to
it's
be
essential.
a happy, joyful person.
Mm-hmm. So I want to be entrepreneurial. That's what came from it. Before I was bipolar, I didn't have any thought to do that. I was just pursuing this life of comfort, this life, be a doctor. There are financial benefits to that, but that wasn't the motivator for me. I had all these traumas that I wanted to utilize and put them together. And now I have this desire to do both, to both be a physician and an entrepreneur.
Somehow, some way,
make it work.
And you now found yourself in a career with a young entrepreneurial company, learning how to manage a team, how to get product to market, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So
what a blessing.
And it's been 10 months I've been working in startup company. And, getting through struggles, it requires work. And that was one thing I was reluctant to accept.
Interesting.
At first.
As hardworking as you've been in your life, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. When the trauma surfaced, the pain and the frustrations just made me want to detach. Yeah. Disengage and just kind of be mad at the world. There was a phase of that, and it's normal with anything in life. With failures, it's hard to go through a failure, but with tools, we then learn to desensitize the effects that come from failing, and it's normal. And we can just be curious from our failures and be like, okay, it didn't work this way. Maybe I can approach it from a whole different angle, and it might work this way.
And how great is their skills of managing risk? So great. And there's one way to get them, taking risk.
Yeah.
Okay, and what else?
Life is your mentor.
Ooh, you earned that one, didn't you?
Yeah. Appreciate life. Having gratitude for the good, the bad, the ugly, and accepting that relationships take work and they don't change overnight, but they can evolve as you will it.
At some point, did you let go of or at least surrender some to the idea that the relationship will turn out how it is going to be, but I need to do me. I need to take care of me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was the first step, was when I was in my seizure-like state. I said, I need a break. And then I quit the state hospital immediately after that. And that was my first honest experience of doing me. And I unbottled a lot, and it was hard and difficult on the marriage, but
because you don't know if marriage can go sideways or get through it.
Yeah,
and it can go either way.
Mm-hmm. So from that point, letting the can of worms unleash itself then allowed us to reorganize things.
Create something new.
Create something new.
Love it.
Mm-hmm. Life's your mentor.
Life's your mentor. Do you feel complete for the podcast today?
Yeah. I've this sharing my story is therapeutic, and
Well, we've put this out there for over a year and a half, and I think, going back to what you're saying, to have been from a place of judgment, like I didn't do it when we were supposed to, or last year I wasn't ready or whatever. You and I, we've let go of that. It'll happen exactly what's going to happen. Last week when we had to reschedule, it was the easiest thing. And today when you're like, are we doing it? We're on, right? Let's give you a thumbs up. Like, yeah, we're going to be there. Things are always working out for us. I think to come from that place, feel free to allow it to happen, and it's happening. You put this out there months and months ago that I want to do this and give, and here it is. You're doing it. It's happening. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
Big smile.
First time I've ever done something like this.
Boom.
So thank you, Shay.
You are so welcome. Period. We win together. Everyone, thank you for joining us and going on this road. It's been looking into a very insightful view of being bipolar, having a family history of mental illness. I'm going through physical, mental, emotional struggles and working through them and finding a universe that is benevolent instead of malevolent, to allow that things are working for you, not to you, to become a person who is transformed by the illness and not somebody who's broke and needs to get fixed. Those are all huge, huge, powerful lessons. And even as you talk, I know now that you have this concept of toolbox, and now you're constantly looking at how to either gain more skill in the tools you have or add more tools to the toolbox and then giving them. And by doing that, I feel like you have a way to see yourself working through life where you're going to find regular fulfillment, joy, progress, growth, and connection. That's powerful. Okay? Brandon, who sits there, Tall Smiles Clarke. Shay, the Matt Mardigan of mental health. Thoroughly enjoyed our time together. Thank you for joining us. If the tremendous team at I Am Recovery can help you out, give them a call at 801-407-9998 or imrtc.com. On YouTube, you can find the Arena Talks. We host monthly speakers in our series, as well as we have them host on the podcast. Check out episodes. Do not like it. Do not subscribe. Do not share. Of course, then you wouldn't grow. So maybe option to share, option to like, and option to subscribe. Have a phenomenal day, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jay.